A multi-billion-dollar car company gets hit with a massive penalty for a customs fumble. At the same time, a global electronics brand slashes its import times by 30%, saving millions. What's the difference here? It wasn't their size, it wasn't their product, it was their mindset. One company was reactive, and boy, did it cost them. The other was proactive, and they turned customs into their secret weapon. Today, we're looking at the real-world case studies that separate a customs success story from a complete catastrophe, and I'll show you the exact strategies you can use to stay on the winning side. Let's be honest, navigating the world of customs can feel like walking through a minefield. One wrong step, a misclassified product, a bad valuation, or a missed rule, and boom. The consequences are no joke. We're talking huge fines, seized cargo, and sometimes it's game over for the business. But on the other side of that minefield, that's where the opportunity is. For companies that get customs compliance right, it becomes a powerful engine for growth, speed, and profit. Today, we're skipping the boring theory. We're tearing down two landmark cases that show just how high the stakes are. First, we'll look at a classic failure, where a household name got slammed with a staggering penalty because they got careless. Then, we'll switch gears to a story of massive success, where a company that thought ahead turned its compliance program into a killer strategic asset. The goal is for you to leave here knowing exactly what traps to avoid and what winning plays to run. 1. The epic failure. When internal controls collapse, our first case study is about one of the biggest names on the planet, Ford Motor Company. You'd think a company that massive would have its customs game on lockdown, right? Well, their story is a huge warning sign that no one is too big to fail at compliance. The problem was a whole string of import violations that happened over several years, and it ended with a painfully large check written to the government. This all comes down to a piece of US law from 1930, the Tariff Act. Section 1592 of that act is the part that deals with penalties for fraud and negligence, and it basically says, you have to be accurate and truthful when you import stuff. The law even has levels. Simple negligence is just failing to be reasonably careful, while gross negligence is when you show a reckless disregard for the rules. In Ford's case, the government said their violations were negligent. One of the biggest mistakes was undervaluing the goods they were importing. This is a big deal because the value you declare is what customs uses to figure out the duties and taxes you owe. Ford, it turned out, wasn't properly declaring certain costs, like assists. An assist is anything of value the importer gives a foreign manufacturer for free or at a discount to help produce the goods. Think tooling, molds, or design plans. They have value, and that value has to be part of the customs declaration. Here's the kicker. According to court findings, Ford had its own internal rules and checklists designed to catch these exact problems. It wasn't that they didn't know the law. It was that their own systems for following the law completely broke down. Over 5 years, that negligence added up to a major underpayment of duties. The consequences were brutal. The U.S. Court of International Trade hammered Ford with penalties in the tens of millions of dollars. One fine for negligence was over $17 million, and another for gross negligence was $3 million, which shows you just how seriously the government takes this stuff. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Having a compliance program on paper means nothing if it's not actually working. A dusty compliance manual on a shelf is just expensive paper. Your system needs constant attention, regular training, and a culture where people are held accountable, from the executive suite all the way down to the person filing the paperwork. Ford's story is the ultimate reminder that just being careless, failing to show what customs calls reasonable care, can hit your bank account just as hard as deliberate fraud. Okay, is your heart rate up a little? Does this Ford story sound a bit too familiar? If the thought of an audit uncovering years of mistakes keeps you up at night, I want you to take one simple step to protect yourself. We put together a free, no-nonsense checklist of the top 10 red flags customs auditors are trained to find. You can use it to run a quick health check on your own operations. The link is right down in the description. Don't wait for that official government notice to show up in your inbox. 2. The huge success. Building a proactive compliance engine. Now, let's flip the script from failure to a massive success. This story is about a global electronics company dealing with the headache of sourcing parts and selling products all over the world. Instead of seeing customs as just another government hassle, they treated it like a core part of their business, something worth investing in. And the results? They were incredible. A 30% drop in customs clearance times and huge savings from dodging penalties and optimizing duties. This wasn't some magic trick. They built their success on 4 key pillars that any business can learn from. First, they got smart with their tech. They ditched the messy spreadsheets and manual data entry for an automated, integrated system. Modern customs platforms can automatically generate and file documents, drastically cutting down on human error, which, by the way, is a top cause of compliance penalties. Their system could, for example, instantly pull product data and apply the correct tariff code, which is a common tripwire for importers. They even used AI tools to scan trade data for risks, letting them solve problems before a container even left the port. The second pillar was creating dedicated teams that actually talked to each other. They didn't just break down the silos between departments, they blew them up. Their trade compliance team wasn't locked in a basement. It included people from legal, IT, supply chain, and finance. This meant compliance was baked into every decision. When the supply chain team found a new supplier, the compliance team was right there to check the duty implications. When finance paid an invoice, they knew exactly how it needed to be declared. The third pillar, and you could argue it's the most important, was a deep commitment to constant training. The world of trade never sits still. Regulations are always changing. This company invested heavily in keeping its people sharp on everything from new trade deals to updated export rules. They knew that smart employees are the best defense against stupid mistakes. And this wasn't just for the compliance nerds, it was for everyone who touched the import-export process. Finally, the fourth pillar was partnering with local experts. Customs rules in one country can be wildly different from the next. Instead of pretending to know everything, they built a network of local customs brokers and consultants. These partners gave them priceless on-the-ground intel and helped them build strong relationships with local customs officials. It was the perfect blend of a central strategy with local execution. By building this tough, proactive system, the company turned customs from a liability into a powerhouse. They didn't just avoid fines. They built a faster, smarter, and more resilient supply chain. In today's crazy world, that's an incredible advantage. The proactive versus reactive mindset. So when you put these two stories next to each other, what's the real difference? It all boils down to being proactive versus reactive. Ford's failure was fundamentally reactive. They had procedures, but the system wasn't alive, and they ended up paying for yesterday's mistakes. The electronics company, on the other hand, built a proactive engine designed to prevent mistakes from ever happening in the first place. Winning at customs isn't about filling out forms perfectly. It's about building a resilient ecosystem. It's about using technology to be faster and more accurate. It's about making compliance a team sport across your entire company. And it's about being a lifelong learner in a world that never stops changing. Here's the key takeaway for any business, big or small. You can look at customs as a cost center and a source of risk, or you can invest in it as a source of real competitive advantage. The path you pick will directly shape your profits, your reputation, and your ability to win on a global stage. The choice is yours. If you found this breakdown valuable, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We drop deep dives like this every single week, covering everything you need to know to master the world of global trade. And don't forget to grab that free audit checklist in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.